We are charting the higher octave with Tears for the Dying. I'm so happy to have them on the show. I've got Adria here and Paige. Thank you both for joining me. Like I mentioned, I don't know why it took a while for me to do this interview, you know. It could have been a long time ago. But now we're here. Thank you very much. And I guess what sparked the interview was the song I heard recently. And because, you know, big shout out to Mooncoil Media, William. He sent me you know, your version of Jolene, which is just
Mm,
amazing. I mean, that's probably one of the best versions I've heard.
thank
Seriously.
you.
I love the voice, you know, how it's just it really invokes the song of what that song means. It really does. It's just like it has you know, it has pain in the song, which is really what the song. I mean, music without pain is just to me is not really music, right? That's why I love goth music. And I think you really do bring out that song even more. I know there's so many versions of that song that came out, but so many people covered it. But and I'm not saying that a lot of them are not good. I'm sure they are. I haven't heard everything, but that's you definitely have one of the best. And I'm gonna be playing it on the radio more often because it sounds so cool. You know, you guys are cool. So thank you for that. And I want to get back into that song because I know you have a connection to that song, Adria, right?
Mm,
A very powerful connection.
that's right.
And Paige, I know you guys met through a roller derby. Is it you guys have a roller derby? Were you guys in the roller derby? How does that work? I love that. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, we both were with the Athens Roller Derby League Classic City for a while. I actually first saw Adria play a solo show at Flickr, a club in Athens, and I was really just like blown away. It was just her and her bass on stage with her, drum machine, and I was just really impressed with her songs and her presence. And I can't remember, Adria, if I reached out to you to interview you for my college radio station. That
I
was
remember. I do
maybe
remember.
before roller derby.
Maybe. I think so. I do remember that now.
I had a show at my college called Sunday Bummer Club, and I think that's what I interviewed you for. And it was right after Caron came out. So I was a fan of Tears before I ever met Adria, but yeah, we started roller skating together when she joined for boot camp, and um, I sadly broke my leg pretty shortly after that and stopped skating, but it was really, really fun while it lasted.
Oh,
Your injury was the first roller derby injury I experienced. Like, you skate long enough, you see them from time to time. It's a fun sport, but also it's comes with a little risk. And I remember everyone that we were in a separate area of the rink at the time, and we noticed that there was some commotion, and like we were told basically just take a knee, and everyone was kind of just sitting. No one was skating. Everyone was like tending to Paige at the time. So yeah, that was our first like I guess more closer interaction in person. So
oh yeah. But how did you guys know that you guys enjoy music together? You had the same, I guess. Paige, what do you play?
I play guitar and bass. We actually both play guitar and bass. We switch it up on
Uh,
stage.
yeah. Well, you know, I'm actually spinning for a skating event. It's called Aterna. That's the name of the event. It's in San Francisco, and I'm going up there in May. It's called Aterna, and it's a goth skating event, goth skating, goth night. Yeah, which is pretty cool. That's why I was just saying. I grew up skating too, you know, back in the day. I mean, well, it was not there was no goth roller derby back then, but it was more like, you know, Michael Jackson and, you know, Madonna and all that kind of stuff, which is really cool on the skating rink too. You know, 80s
but,
is like 70s.
yeah, I mean I grew up. I'm probably a little bit. I don't know how old you are, DJ Nocturnia, but like I'm like old enough to have been roller skating at the time when like Ring My Bell and
Yeah,
disco
yeah,
was
yeah.
in. So I was a small kid, but that was roller skating was huge back in the 70s. And we went to a little skating rink, skate in Athens, and I got to skate there as a kid, but then like 40 years later, when I started doing skating again, I went back and skated there again as like 40-year-old. So it was pretty fun.
I know. I mean, back then the skates were not even the way they are now. They were like those really weird looking skates that you would think like, how can you wear those? It's so uncomfortable, you know? Now they're way better. And yeah, so that's really great. I'm so glad that, it brings back a lot of memories for me, just skating and the kind of stuff that you guys do. So I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about how you started Tears for the Dying, Adria, because I know that I love the name and I love your presence on stage and I watch your videos and stuff. Growing up in Georgia, right? Is there a lot of goth? Is the goth culture like? I mean, so far I met so many bands from
Mm.
Georgia. I wonder there's a lot of goth over there.
There's a little bit. It's not as like as I would say it's like large a scene as like Los Angeles or like Prague or where it's got we've always had a few goth bands over time through through the Atlanta and Athens area. I played one of my first bands in Athens. It was actually my second band. Was called The Endless. And it was a, gothic, goth punk, death rocky kind of outfit on drum machine, guitar, bass, and a vocal. Um, and as far as I can tell, and I've done a little bit of research, like the Endless were the very first gothic band in Athens to like outwardly present as goth. Um, so we were around for about a year or so, and then someone broke into our practice space and stole our gear, and that was it for that band. Tears came around a bit later, so I did between the Endless and the Tears, I did a kind of a lo-fi pop project called The Girl Pool, not to be confused with Girl Pool from San Francisco. And I did that band for 3 or 4 years, and I was kind of edging more and more towards goth in general. I was also at the time, I started like transitioning. I came out as trans back in the mid 1990s, and first as what I called androgynous, non-binary back then, and later I would kind of come to adopt. I was a trans woman, and so through those experiences, I began writing poetry, and I kind of felt the desire to like put music to what I was going through. So I started writing lyrics for Tears back in the late 90s, started writing music in the early 2000s and recorded a kind of, I guess, a demo, as a two-song demo with Time and Disease back in 2002 here in Athens. And so that was kind of the very beginnings of Tears back then.
So the first single came out in 2003. Is that
That's
right?
right. Mhm.
Okay. So it was like around that time when you started forming the band
That's
and
right.
yeah.
Yeah. hmm So
Oh,
I was really inspired. I went to I went to three of the drop deads in New York City that Polina used to hold. I think they've moved to Europe at this point, and I think they make I don't know if they still have drop deads over there or not, but like they had some amazing festivals. The very first one was in 2003 in August. Cinema Strange was there, Anti-World, Cult of Psychic Fetus, fucking like so many great bands, and that just really I had already started writing music by that point, but seeing all that and being exposed to like that it just really egged me on to like you got to do this. And so it took a little bit of time to finally get some people together to do a band. We started playing shows in the first era back in 2000 and I guess early 2005 or so.
yeah. For me, I mean, I've been, back in the day it was called death rock, right? It was I don't remember being called goth back in the late 80s when I was growing up in Hawaii. And it was really an interesting time, It's not like how it is now. Everybody just knows you like you would have to go buy makeup. The really white ones, and you can't just buy it anywhere. It's not available, you know what I mean? You have to like make it yourself or figure it out. And I would have a mohawk, and I would use Knox gelatin and this hairspray called Spritz Forte. So now it's like you can buy anything and just do it. I mean, was that accepted? The goth culture, was it accepted? Because I was reading something about your background. I guess your family was Christian or Catholic. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
How did they? Yeah, yeah. Were they accepting of it?
No,
Yeah.
definitely not. They weren't accepting of pretty much anything I did.
Mhm.
Um, Coming out as trans, especially being involved in punk and goth culture, going to protests, they were not a fan of any of that. So it was a little different time. And as you alluded to, like I'm old enough to have gone. I could have experienced a lot of the first, I guess the third, back in the early, I could have experienced that at clubs. I was just old enough to, but like, at the same time, we were kind of kept away from anything like kind of edgy. Whether that was a result of us living out in the country and just not knowing about it. Um, my earliest exposure to alternative music, I mean, would have been literally like probably hip hop, honestly. Like we had a college radio station here, and like on Tuesday nights they had a hip hop show back in the early 1980s, and so they would have a couple DJs. They would do live sets. They would mix stuff, and it was I love the drum machines and the synthesizers and all that. The sound really got me, like the music and the lyrics and all that. A lot of times they were silly, but a lot of times they were kind of political, and I was into it. Um, and it wasn't until the late 80s that I kind of randomly stumbled across punk rock for the very first time in my life. I might have heard little snippets of it, like, as a kid, just on whatever, but like I finally really listened to it. And I was introduced to Dead Kennedys, and the first record I bought was Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. And from there, I discovered the Subhumans, and I've always been I mean, I still love the Subhumans. And um, so like from there eventually I started a band and after a few years of doing the band, one of my bandmates said, Adria, like do you know this band called Boohoo's? And of course I was mishearing it. It was Bauhaus, like and I like no, I'd never heard of them before. And I just assumed they were just some like pretentious art rock band or whatever, and I just like I just wanted to listen to punk rock. And so he's like, Adria, I'm going to invite you over to my house. Let's listen to records one night. So we'll go get some greasy, disgusting fast food, what we used to, and we'll get some beer. And like, so he invited me over, and we listened to like a handful of albums at night. We listened to the Plasmatics, and which was like, I'd never heard them before, and they were fucking amazing. And then we listened to 45 Graves, starting out with Autopsy. And I was like fucking mind blown. Like this is like punk rock, but it's really dark. And like, the lyrics are fucking creepy, and I love it. And then he pulled out Christian Death, Only Theater of Pain. And that was a life-changing experience for me to hear that record, back in the early 1990s. I was like, just everything about the music. The vocals were very kind of androgynous. I couldn't quite figure out whether it was like a guy or gal singing. And like, it really struck all the right notes for me. And at that point, I was like, I started consuming more and more goth music and learning more and more about the culture. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it
it was definitely it was not like society was not really ready for it at that time. Like, like it was still we were still kind of conservative in the South, like you had Athens, you had like little punk bands and stuff here, but like once you got outside of major cities, it was pretty dangerous to be, out wearing stuff like this, just like, black lipstick would,
yeah.
I have some stories to tell, but I don't want to waste all our time on them.
No, no, I totally get it because I'm the same way. I mean, back then people would just look at you and say, "This is back in the day." Now it's a little bit more accepting. Everybody wears black, right? You don't have to be goth to wear black, but back then they would say, "Who died?" Were you going to the funeral? That's a typical thing, right? It's kind of, What about you, Paige? Have you always been into the music?
Yes, I was growing up a little bit later, in the 90s. And I mean, I definitely still relate to a lot of like goth culture not being as easily accessible as it is today. I remember like going to the grocery store on Halloween and buying up all the black lipstick that was
Yeah,
like for sale in the like makeup aisle at Kroger.
I
Um,
know. That's the
but
time
yeah,
to
I
buy it,
always
right?
really loved punk rock. I got to see The Damned and TSOL when I was pretty young at the old Masquerade. We're playing at the Masquerade in a couple months here, but it's a new version. The old Masquerade was like a really legendary punk club that we had, and saw a lot of really cool shows there when I was too young and getting in with, X's on my hands or a fake ID or whatever. But yeah, I also remember in school, I was in middle school when Columbine happened, and for music and goth culture to be blamed for that, all of a sudden everybody was like looking at me sideways and everybody seemed to be afraid of me. They put new rules on the dress code at my middle school for me, like no heavy metal chain jewelry, no fishnet, no black lipstick. And it was like I was the only one wearing that stuff. So I felt very targeted, I remember, and it just made me all
Mm.
the more anti-authoritarian and rebellious than I already was.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, some now you have to buy if you want the goth decorations, miss, and buy a whole lot, and just put them aside because they take them away, like really interesting things now. That's what we do. Even napkins and things like that. You can find cool napkins. But speaking of like traditional, I mean, you talked about the pioneers of 45 Graves and all that. I did an interview with Paul Rossler.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So
The
he,
originals, yeah.
yeah, yeah. He actually has a label. I think I forget the name of the label now, but he was part of that Nina Hagen song. He does guitar for Nina Hagen, which is he's so amazing. In fact, I want to talk to him again, and I just did an interview with Community FK, Patrick
Yeah.
Mata. Just more recently, I put him up in the yeah. Now that was it was really interesting to go back in time. I mean, you worked with Tom Ashton. I did an interview with March Violets too, just recently too. I know they're back and they toured.
Mhm.
Yeah. So how did you get connected to him?
So Tom and I met back in the early 2010s. We met at a show in Athens. I don't remember if it was Peter Hook and the Light or if it was psychedelic first, but we got introduced to each other. So a couple, 3 years later or so, started doing Tears. I'd taken a little time off between the 2000s and when we started Tears again back in 2017. So when I started writing music, and got to the point where I was like, well, dang, I'd like to release something. Tom was the first person I thought of because, he mentioned, when I first met him that he was doing, basically studio work. And so we got together and we recorded Caron in his studio in here in Athens. And so yeah, he's a great dude, phenomenal guitar player, and has all kinds of fun stories of the olden days back in the UK, which are fun to listen to.
Yeah, I think he told me he lives there or close to you somewhere.
That's right. Yeah, he
Yeah,
lives in
okay.
Athens. Mhm.
Yeah, because I know the other members are in England, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I'm like, and I found it unusual that he was living there, and I go, oh, really? Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, so that's interesting. It's like a full circle. I interview somebody, and then I meet somebody from that thing. Going back to Jolene, I know that song is just so amazing. How you decided to cover that song, and especially when you're connected to Chip Young, right? Who's your uncle?
Hmm.
Your real uncle. Okay, this is
That's right.
your real uncle and I know he passed away in 2015, right?
That's right. Hmm.
Yeah. So growing up, I just found it interesting how your family would turn on the radio and you would hear your uncle and he would actually play some of the songs, right? Some of
That's
the
right.
yeah.
Family reunions. Yep. It was always a given that there was going to be guitar time at family reunions, and
Mm.
granted, back in the 1970s, like I was still a child, and I really didn't understand. I was aware that Chip was, playing on songs on the radio, and like it was Jolene. He also played on "I Can Help," Billy Swan's "I Can Help" back in the early '70s, and #1 hit. He played with a lot of stuff. He was like one of the session guitar players for Elvis, who I don't really care for individually, but like he was very well regarded in Nashville, both for playing as well as studio work. So like I didn't now I know all this, but like when I was a child, it was just like, oh, we're going to Chip's house and he lives on this big mansion and has a huge farm and he has a studio and like it was just like okay. And it wasn't until a little bit later in life that I started kind of figuring out, just who he was, and like the amazing work that he did, and like um, Jolene is incredible. And now I should mention too that Jolene, the guitar part that she plays, the intro lick that you hear when that Dolly's song starts up, that's my uncle playing. Um, there's another guitar player playing a nylon, basically kind of more strumming, and but Chip was doing the finger picking on that. He did not write that arrangement. That was Dolly Parton who came up with that really intricate guitar lick pattern. And back in the like 60s and early 70s, before she grew her fingernails way out, she was an amazing guitar player. I mean, she still is, honestly, but like back then she was very innovative and she came up with some really interesting stuff. But she reached out to Chip to play the part on the recording, and that's how it came out. So yeah, so he did play the song at family reunions, and I remember hearing it back then. As again, it didn't like didn't connect to me as well as it would today, for sure.
Yeah, I really like how you cover that song in this very dark and mystifying way.
No, it is. It's a song about something that I think all of us have experienced at one time in our lives, if not multiple times, where you're in a situation and then a third person comes in to the
Oh yeah.
situation and there's anxiety there. Like, there's just going to be sometimes. And the song is literally all about that anxiety and just, having a new person come in and then is this going to or is our relationship going to end? What's going to happen? And the original song is to me, it's like it kind of it feels almost happy and upbeat, but it's to me like it's more anxiety, like that kind of that tension and anxiety of like what's going on. And Dolly did a great job of arranging that and then pulling that anxiety out. And we, like I feel like we wanted to treat that a little differently and like just to make it a little darker because I mean like, this
Mhm.
having been through some of that myself in the past, and like, and
Yeah.
not handling it, if I'm quite honest, not handling it the best way, like I should have just let things go. And I was like, just,
Yeah, I know,
just
yeah. I mean, everybody I think has gone through something like that. I can't think of anybody. It's a good song, and it's really hard to handle that in the best way you can. It's because your emotions take over.
right, 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 right.
That's really hard. You have to be a really gone through it many times to be able to handle that.
We changed a little bit of lyrics too, with the arrangement. Like, I wasn't good with just singing exactly the words that Dolly, I wanted to make it more inclusive of, modern culture and, queer friendly and making Jolene, like I refer to ebony skin and, so like, or, so like I just like, and that was kind of led into like the video that accompanied that song we just released a few months ago. This I really wanted to bring out and it kind of accentuate the modern goth scene, and how diverse and how just beautifully diverse it has become over the last several decades. And furthermore, I have done a lot of growth, since my experience with my, my Jolene moment, where like I wanted to not end the song on, like someone feeling bad. I wanted to end on a positive note, and I really appreciate the director, Frankie and Blake, how they wrote the very end of the video where or the main character like after like getting consoled by friends, she goes right back into the venue where she was just rejected from, and I thought that was so strong and powerful. And it's a moment of growth, and I think that's what I want people to take from our interpretation of the song. It is, like it's you sometimes are presented with things that are uncomfortable, and it's okay to feel anxiety. It's okay to feel bad about them, but you have to continue on. You have to let things go and let things work out how they're going to work out. And sometimes that does not include you, and that's okay too.
Yeah, that's a really good. I remember that in the video. Yeah, that's a really good. Does Dolly Parton know that you that you
I mean, I don't know if she's seen it yet. I think it'd be kind of fun.
I think you better let her know because it's
If I find the way
such an
to let
awesome.
her know, I do. So
Yeah,
like he was literally at Uncle Chip's funeral, and like
yeah.
of course, I wasn't gonna go up at her funeral. Hey Dolly, how's it going? Like, like it's not appropriate. Like, I have no idea how to get in touch with her. So
I think she will embrace that. Really would. I
I
mean,
think she would love the video. I think she
yeah,
really
and she's very supportive of
absolutely.
everyone. She's a good person. I think she would really because you do a great version. How well, she's still alive, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You should. I think she would like it. I think that would be great. I uh I really admire you guys, both of you guys. You're both your individuality. Being so strong with who you are. Who your personality, your authenticity. Did you ever have issues in the past? Because can be mean, right? There's a lot of cruelty out there. I mean, I experienced it too back growing up. You know, just being different, that kind of thing. And you must have gone through that, right? Just just because that's the way the world is.
Mm, H.
I mean, I alluded to it a little bit before what I went through when I was like in school, and I ended up dropping out of school because I, you know, was feeling trapped there. But I was a loner in a lot of ways. I really wish I had had a community, a more of like the goth scene that I have seen when we go to our shows today. There's just such a really rich community of kids, and
True.
I kind of wish I had had that. I was very much a loner. And my life took some turns and I ended up in prison. And that was really where I learned how to be in community with other people. I'm an only child. I didn't, like I said, really grow up with a very strong community ties, but all of a sudden I was living with a whole lot of women and I had to figure out being community. And that actually really served me well. And now it's so important to have um, a community and to be connected and feel solidarity with people who are like-minded. And that's really something that I love to see. Like I said, at our shows lately, we've really seen the community show up.
How about you, Adria?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, for sure. Like, I feel like I'm still working to find community and family. Like, um, have I experienced people being mean? Yeah. I mean, I'm trans, and I'm autistic, um, and like those things combined are not a like reason to like reject someone, but like also like it's just a thing. I don't make a lot of eye contact with people, and like um like I'm just being very vulnerable right now in this interview. I don't know why, but like I've gone through a lot of growth in the last several years. Like honestly, like going through a really traumatic breakup with someone I love so deeply, and like having gone through at the same time, I went through some life-altering health concerns back in 20, separate from COVID back in 21, and like I lost my shit, and I just in hindsight, I was going insane, and I was on crisis lines almost every day, and because the autism, like just being overwhelmed with emotions, I did not know how to control and manage my emotions, so I just let it spill out everywhere. Like, if you knew me back then, there's a good chance you saw me when I was like being a trauma queen and like, posting suicidal stuff, and like, it was bad. I was literally seeking community. I was seeking, to be, like I was wanting love, and like I was having a really difficult time, expressing that, and it's taken a lot of going to therapy and to self-reflection. I'm a much stronger person than I was, back in 21 and 22. Um,
Yeah, I
so,
think your music embraces like I think if somebody the people in the scene like who's looking for a strong mentor or a strong somebody to admire, somebody to to embrace. I think you carry that with you, in your music and who you are, being authentic and an individual,
visibility is so incredibly important, like in all kinds of different ways. I mean, like as Paige alluded to, like she's got a lot of background that I don't share, that she can provide testimony, and she can provide experience, and like and like, visibility in that end, and like certainly, like for instance, at one of our we played a show last weekend in Columbia, South Carolina, and it was honestly, it was pretty bonkers. I don't know how many. I think I expected like 20 or 30 people to show there. It was maybe around 250 or so, and it was pretty crazy. After our set, we uh, we were by the merch table, and this man walks up, and a child comes with, and the child is got teary eyes and whatever, and like the father was saying, this is my son, and he's trans mask, and all the words you said during your concert, that he felt seen, and it was really touching. And visibility is important. I didn't have that during the 1990s, there was no one to look up to. There's, that I could like, oh wow, I can do this, and this is how people can actually, to be trans for a long time, and you know, it's incredible. Like, so I mean, that's a testimony to just longevity and like
Yeah.
being out there, and it's also a testimony to the strength of that little boy who decided to come out and said, hey, I'm your son, and the strength and the courage that kid has, and that putting that one foot in front of the other, that's really important. And the parent brought the kid to a goth show. It was the first goth show he'd ever been to, and like it was just really touching moment.
Yeah.
And that's, we hear little stories here and there when we go out and play.
No,
Um,
that's
for sure.
beautiful. That he will always remember that. That's one thing. You'll be just something that he'll always. You know how people go back in time and remember these things people that inspire them and help them to go over whatever they're going through. I mean, we all do, right? We all have gone through that somehow through people, events, or things like that, and I can sense that power you guys you bring to the community. And that's why I wanted to do this interview, because I can feel the strong presence that you have, and I wish I did this a while ago. Um, but I know that so this is the latest album. I think it was the In the Shadows of the Midnight Sun. Oh yeah, and that was released already, right?
That
So
was 2024. That's right.
is there a particular inspiration behind that album?
Yeah. It was um it's almost a concept record. And it is, so we genre drift a little bit on the record. We have anything from straight up death rock to there's like a grindcore, and then there's ethereal Jolene. There's a lot of different music on the record. It's really meant to be listened to front to back, and it's just it's a telling of someone who's just going through existential crisis and then winds up in the very depths of mental health hell. And then one moment they decide that they just don't want to be this way anymore. And that's characterized with the song Don't Wanna, which is a very short 30-second song. And what I found in, talking with others and my personal experience is that when we are at our worst mental health state, it usually just takes a second for us to realize that, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I'm going to make an appointment with therapy. I'm going to start getting better because I can't stand this anymore. And so it was a very short moment in time that happened. And then from there on, we have songs like Ikinokota, which is a song I wrote in Japanese
Oh, nice,
about
that one.
overcoming, mental health hell, and surviving. It's a song of survival. And I wrote that song as well as Don't Wanna in Japanese, but because it was a more testament of course, getting better, but also using learning a foreign language to overcome and kind of work through some of those mental health issues we've had. So like learning a language is really important. It doesn't have to be Japanese, obviously, French or whatever, like, but just every day learning a new word, it's a little victory, a little kind of self-affirmation. And each day there's something new happening positive in my life. And it's because I'm studying and I'm learning. And it gives me confidence. And I still can't speak Japanese fluently. I'll be a way from that, honestly. But like, I still learn. To this day. So that's kind of where Ikinokota came from. And
Mm.
then we have Kaiju, which is a song referring to an anime that came out in the 1990s called Neon Genesis Evangelion. And specifically, there was a movie that came out a little bit after the main series called The End of Evangelion. That's kind of where Kaiju comes in. Um, and Neon Genesis Evangelion it's an anime. It's a very powerful one. And in the first couple episodes I watched, I was like, oh, this is just a kaiju movie like Godzilla or whatever. And then like after about the third or fourth episode, you're like, what the fuck is happening here? And you begin to kind of relate to a lot of the traumas. There's three kids in the series, and each of them have a very different background, but they're all experiencing, trauma, depression, anxiety in different ways. And that show really characterizes like the human condition, especially with younger people. So it was an anime that I loved a lot. I still love to watch it when I get a chance. So we kind of wrote that song about kaiju, about an anime, which is dealing with a lot of mental health stuff. And
Mm.
then we I think Higambana is after that, which is a song about it's about death and about accepting that one day we are not going to be here, and it's a song about accepting that time when it comes with peace and love. And it may be us, it may be a friend, maybe a family member that's going through that, but there's going to time in our lives when we're going to be presented with that, and we can't fight it. Like you
Yeah.
can't. We're all going to go down that same journey together.
Right.
And so it's a song about just embracing that with love. And then the very end of the song, or very end of the record, is Jolene, and that's just kind of a nice
Yeah, that's
nightcap.
a very nice way how it flows. So you said that you were learning Japanese?
I
Uh,
so this.
a little bit. Have you been? Do you want to go to Japan, or have you been to
I
Japan?
would love to go to Japan. I
You
would
must
love
have
to.
some kind of you must love Japanese, the Japanese culture or something, or the what is it, the move, the anime and the
Mm.
culture itself, and
It's very different from our culture, and like the
mm,
religions are very different from what we're used to here. It's y- you hear sometimes like, oh, Japan's very clean and proper, and like there are parts of Japan that are not clean and proper, but like for the most part, it's a very polite society. And there, like
that's
would I
true.
be accepted there as a trans woman? But no one's going to like in America, we obviously have bathroom bills, and the administration is trying to erase us off of all the websites everywhere. But like in Japan, like if you act accordingly and you're proper and respectful, and you're mindful, and you follow the cultural norms, like it's going you'll be okay. Like, and that's a big difference. But like, um, yeah, I would love to go to Japan. Honestly,
Yeah,
I hope.
we have a big Japanese culture here in, in Hawaii.
Um,
Japanese food is the best. It's probably
mhm.
the third best in the world, in my opinion.
Mm,
You know, Japan's first, Guam is second, and here is the third. I mean, because we're close to Japan, we got the fresh fish and all that. If you like that stuff.
mhm.
I'm used to eating that. I love to live here because of that. That's one of the things. It's one of my favorite foods. So I can totally. And Japan is I think it's still reasonably cheap right now to travel there if you ever do. If you
I
decide to.
mean, their economy is in shambles, and like, it's been happening for for decades now, and like, so their yen is very under valued compared to the dollar right now, so it doesn't enable people to go there. And unfortunately, like, there's also a crisis happening in Japan with foreigners coming in, Westerners specifically, and Americans especially, who go to Japan and don't follow cultural norms, don't follow the rules, and wind up making just embarrassing themselves, and us as a country. It's terrible. Like,
Yeah, that's
so
yeah. I
uh,
mean, there was a time when I think they were disturbing the tourists were disturbing the geishas.
yeah, that they literally they've had to
That wasn't
block
very
off
good.
certain areas of cities because of that happening. And like it just being, I think that's it's the unfortunate part of it being accessible to a lot of Americans, is that you have a lot of people who just go there and think that they can just be disrespectful, and like expect people to respect them, but then not show the same respect back. And there's so if you're planning to go to Japan, I would recommend everybody like watch a lot of YouTube videos and be prepared to change how you interact with people.
Very true.
It's a beautiful country, and it's a beautiful way to experience life the way they do.
You guys have any like touring coming up? I, you were mentioning maybe Paige.
Yeah, we're going to Florida in April, end of April, playing a few shows in Florida. We just did a run down to Florida in December and had a really good time, so we're looking forward to that.
Mhm.
And then we have a show here in Atlanta in May with Twin Tribes at the Masquerade, which I
Oh,
mentioned
cool.
earlier. And then, yeah, I think later in the year, we're looking forward to venturing out a little bit further.
Like maybe like closer to the north to the West Coast, maybe.
If
I
we can,
yeah,
it's a lot to put together some dates, but we're looking at it for sure.
I would love to see you guys. The closest to me would be the West Coast.
Mm.
Yeah, so that would be
Do you sometimes fly to the West Coast?
oh yeah, often. Yeah, like
Mm.
California. Yeah.
Mm.
I've seen Twin Tribes. I mean, they played with was it? I think it was with Clan of Xylox.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
some time ago, before the pandemic.
Right. And we
Yeah.
played with Twin Tribes 2 years ago here at the Southern Gothic Festival, which you'll probably hear a little more maybe tomorrow or whenever you interview with Dusty with Vision Videos. Like it's a yearly festival that's we've kind of started here in Athens. That Dusty has started, not we, as in like Dusty has started. And we played with Twin Tribes back in I think it was 2023. Yeah, they're super nice guys. I was just really impressed by how like congenial they were and just how just very just nice to be around. And I love their music too. It's fun to listen to.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. So, can you just run through the names of your band members?
You're looking at them. So
Oh,
we've evolved over the years from going to full like we've had like 5 members with live drums. We obviously back in the late 2010s we were just a three-piece drum machine, and so right now we're a duo. So basically we
oh,
have
okay. Yeah.
yeah we basically have a drum machine. It's a backtrack pedal, which we load in our backtracks on. And so we have, drums. We have some songs with, keyboards and some bass, and a lot of songs we're playing guitar and bass and so on. So it's a kind of a pretty full wall sound. But yeah. So we're just doing the duo right now, which coincidentally is like a lot, a lot easier to
Yeah,
like
no, yeah,
go on the road with
I mean,
two members and like a full band, honestly.
yeah, you totally rocked the stage. I'm just, I mean, I'm watching the videos, and I wish I can catch your shows. I think I will one of these days. Whenever I can, I'll try to make it down to the closest I can. Or you never know, I might go to Georgia.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah. Congratulations on this. I know it's already released, but are you planning on anything in the future? Did you start writing a new piece, a new album in the future, in the works coming up, or?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about writing this new record because I get to be a part of the process. I just joined the band over the summer, and so I have been, really ecstatic to be basically joining my favorite band. And now that we are writing new music, then I really get to kind of make it my own, and so I'm excited about that.
Do
Yeah.
you have any idea, like, wait, maybe when it's gonna be released?
I
Probably
don't
a
know. I mean, we'd love it. We'd love, yeah, no, like we're just literally just getting, so we've been playing a lot. So like since the summertime, Paige has learned, I don't know how many songs, like 20 or so songs. Or, like they've learned so many freaking songs, like, and like hard songs to play too. Like even our version of Jolene is pretty tricky to play on the guitar. And so they've done an amazing job just like picking up all the material, which is really great because like kind of get familiar with our style of writing, and then like when we start writing new stuff and all that, it's kind of flows in one thing into another. So we've just been a lot busy. Like we do a lot of touring, like Paige mentioned a little while ago, playing some shows down in Florida, and we've gone to North Carolina and around the Southeast a bunch lately. So like over the next couple or so months, we're gonna have a little more town time so we can actually start proper writing the next record. And what that looks like, don't know. I have a feeling that it's um it's probably I feel like I'm feeling like just kind of I'm feeling pretty pissed off with the world, and I'll just leave it at that as far as our next record
yeah.
goes.
I absolutely I share that with you. With not very happy right now with everything, but yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. But I'm so glad that I'm using my creativity and doing interviews and music and doing, just that kind of thing. I'm a DJ, so taking that anger I could be putting out there to something creative, just like you guys are. So I applaud your music, and like I said, I love this version. I'll play it. I'm gonna be in the I'll play it in the radio station, and maybe I'll tag you guys when I play it. And I'll release this sometime. Maybe in a couple of weeks or so.
Mm.
the interview, and thank you for sharing your
Thank,
story. You know,
thank you for having us on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, and Paige. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for
Thank you
sharing
so
your
much for
story.
having us.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Don't stop. Just be strong and keep putting that endurance and that inspiration you're doing. You know, thank you. All right.
Same to you.
Take care.